large in the time that I have been here in Seattle, and there's people I've spoken to. A lot of it is pretty similar to what we've heard from Jeremy. The reportedly about at least six victims that were injured in this shooting. I spoke with a gentleman who was at his vendor, his tent that he was running his business out of. He says he didn't really hear any sort of commotion or anything beforehand. It just sort of burst out of nowhere. About a dozen, maybe 14 shots is what he said he heard, and then it was just craziness from there. Everybody needing to, get out. Obviously, Seattle police ordered the grounds to be cleared out. It is a very heavy scene, which I believe you might have seen from Jeremy earlier over by the backside of the Mopop Museum. That sort of side entrance near that big playground area, that is obviously close to the International Fountain. That is where I saw probably close to a dozen SUVs. So it's just still a very heavy scene, as Jeremy mentioned, and we have been hearing there will be some sort of media update, hopefully right here behind me at this turnaround spot. So we will hopefully get some more information there soon, but just really tense. A lot of people saying they heard the shots, they were inside, people still sitting there with the food that they had bought and were trying to, enjoy before this all happened. As this event was winding down for the day. It was supposed to close at about 8 o'clock.
All right, so you did speak to some witnesses. Tell me, or if not necessarily witnesses, folks who heard the gunshots. How did they describe what happened, what they thought they were hearing, and then what they did? And did anybody describe the scene to you? Because it sounds like it would have been extremely chaotic. This is a 74-acre walkable Seattle center. It covers a lot of ground and a lot of people. So, people hear gunshots, they're not sure what they hear, and sometimes panic sets in. Can you set the scene for us and tell us what some of the witnesses or folks that were there may have shared with you?
Yeah, well, the first people I came across was a few women who I could see were clearly standing with like three very young children, and this mother was saying, I was standing right there, I have my kids with me, and all of a sudden I just hear this barrage of gunfire. She said it sounded like 20 to 30 gunshots, but you never know, in the moment. Obviously, just as I said before, we heard from another person, maybe a dozen or 14 or so. So the numbers are all over the place as of right now, but obviously when you're in that sort of situation, it's so, frazzling. They said, she just said it really just kind of came out of nowhere. She was obviously very worried, being that she's with her three young children. They were all okay, thankfully. That same vendor, that same business owner that I was talking about just before, he did say he sort of heard it in kind of these quick bursts, like as far as the gunfire goes. And we hear it all the time from people. They thought it was maybe firecrackers or fireworks, but in such a busy and crowded event with all these people around, he said that didn't really make a lot of sense, and very quickly it settled in just with how everybody was responding and reacting there around the fountain. I had one gentleman message me on X in response to a post I put up, who said he was right there sitting at the fountain when he heard the shots behind him. He just said it was absolutely crazy, just chaotic, and that he had to just get away from there. And so, yeah, that's as far as I've heard from people.
Well, that's a lot of information, and it's very helpful. And I'm curious for the witness who was right there at the fountain, any indication as to what led up to this? Oftentimes, and I don't want to guess here what happened, but sometimes there's some sort of altercation that leads up to the shooting. And is there any indication from anybody who was shooting? Did we see the shooter? Did they see them run? Did they see them shoot? Could there be more than one? Any indication from the witnesses you spoke with?
The one gentleman who was that vendor, he was saying, when we asked him that, he did say he didn't necessarily make out whether there was one person, multiple people. He wasn't entirely sure. And from everybody else we've spoken to, they said they couldn't really make it out. As you can imagine, in such a big crowd like that, as soon as you hear it, you start moving the other direction. Right. I think for the people who had to have been right on top of it, they would probably be the ones that investigators and detectives would like to talk to, but just with how crowded it was, I think it's pretty tough for people to made out who this possibly, could have been. But again, as we said, and Jeremy said, we'll hopefully be getting an update from police here soon, Michelle.
Yeah, hopefully. All right, Tyler Cunnington reporting for us live at the scene outside the Seattle Center, not far from the Space Needle there. Thanks very much for the update. I want to go back to our colleague, Jeremy Harris, who is awaiting a briefing from Seattle police. We're hoping to learn much more, but just to remind everybody, if you're just joining us, there is a mass shooting that happened at the Seattle Center tonight around 6 o'clock in the evening, right in the midst of a very crowded time. The Bite of Seattle, an annual tradition, it was happening, so we know likely tens of thousands of people were spread out throughout the park when those shots were fired. But let's get to Jeremy and find out. He was one of the first reporters on the scene. Jeremy, any updates, anything else that you can fill us in on? We appreciate it. We know we're waiting on the police to brief you.
Yeah, well, we've still got a lot of information that's coming in right now. We just confirmed with Harborview Medical Center. They tell us they are receiving patients from the shooting here. So we know some of those ambulances are likely headed up to Harborview or have already gotten there. Just to set the scene for you a little bit, this is a row of SPD cruisers. This is one of several around Seattle Center. This is right just off of 5th and Thomas. And then if we come back around here, just so you understand where this is in relation to the base of the Space Needle, we're right here underneath the Space Needle. And this, of course, Bite of Seattle is at Seattle Center. So for those who may be watching from other regions or may not be familiar with this area, there's the Space Needle, then there's Seattle Center, which is a large park sort of campus that has a lot of concert venues, there's shops, there's areas to do public celebrations and all sorts of events. There's a large fountain, the Museum of Pop Culture, Climate Pledge Arena, all of that is at Seattle Center. So on any day, Seattle Center is busy, but today with Bite of Seattle going on, arguably one of the most busy days here at Seattle Center, with tens of thousands of people. We were told there was around 350,000 who were expected to be down here for Bite of Seattle, as has been going on this weekend. So as the witnesses who we've talked to, and as you've heard from some of those while we've been on the air, they describe a very busy area, a very good atmosphere, and then all of a sudden everything changed on a dime when those shots were fired off. The last witness we spoke to, Jeff, who you just heard from, he described to me about 24 gunshots is what he heard, and then he could see several people down. He saw 3. I spoke to another witness who told me he counted 6 people who had been shot and were down. And then we also talked to that other poor kid who had just gotten shoved over during the melee, and he was all scraped up. So just a very chaotic scene. And now as we're getting now about an hour and a half out from when these shots were fired and when the victims were injured. At this point, Seattle Center has calmed down significantly, and now it's into investigation mode. I'm going to show you a little bit more of that. We're going to walk down over here. If you're familiar with this area, there's a playground that's just here off the west side of the Museum of Pop Culture. That's one of several places that were evacuated during the shooting because there were some booths that were up. So we're just walking right now as we're with you live on the air. We're just walking between the Museum of Pop Culture and then sort of this playground area that's by where the monorail gets to the Seattle Center and the Space Needle. And there's crime scene tape up on all sides of this scene. So it's a very large scene. And they have officers out with long guns sort of guarding each end of this very expansive scene. Of course, we know the shooting itself happened more towards that international fountain. That's based on multiple witness reports. What we don't know is what prompted the shooting. Was this a shootout? Were there multiple shooters? Was this one person who came into the crowd and started opening fire? We do not know that at this point. SPD has not given us that information. We don't have an exact count on victims, but we know from Harborview Medical Center, they tell us they are receiving victims right now. We don't know their conditions. Police have not confirmed anything about fatalities. And at this point, Seattle Center is just basically locked down on every side as there's crime scene tape, as you can see right here. And this is just really sort of a disappointing scene because this area right now should be full of kids and families, and this should be a great environment. The Bite of Seattle is one of the highlights for the summer here in Seattle. It's right before we get into Seafair, and we have all of these celebrations. And so this area should have a bunch of kids in it, and there should be families here having a good time. And instead, people were running for their lives to get away from somebody who was firing a gun. And we also have people who are injured. We don't know about fatalities, but it's just tragic that something like this, Bite of Seattle, would turn into a terrible end to it like this. And we do know, as you saw a lot of the Seattle police officers here, we've just heard from witnesses that there was zero response in police getting here. They were already on scene. I know some of the police officers who were actually working overtime. They were down here. So when these shots were fired, SPD was here just like that. They were already on scene, running right for it. So we don't know, don't have confirmed information on if anybody was taken into custody or what the status of the shooter or if there were multiple shooters. That information has not yet been confirmed. We do know, though, there were police who were already on scene. They were there instantly, went into work, and we know bystanders jumped in to help some of those who were wounded. So very frustrating and disappointing situation down here at Seattle Center, but we are expecting, SPD tells us they're going to give us an update here in hopefully the next little bit. So we will bring that to you as we get it. Michelle?
Well, and Jeremy, I'm just noticing the images. They're just so telling. It is so quiet there. SPD has, as you mentioned, locked down the campus, the entire campus. And I was wondering, where are all the evacuees? And I think they have left. They got in their cars and they went home and they got out of there, understandably so. I wonder if you could sort of paint the scene for us. So once you arrived and what you're seeing now, sort of that comparison. I mean, early on, I saw a lot of officers with long guns. It made me think that perhaps they're still looking for the suspect. Now I'm wondering maybe they have, a person of interest in custody. We don't have anything confirmed there, but can you give us a sense for how things may have changed in this last hour and 40 minutes or so?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I first got here, I just happened to be downtown, and I live not far from here, and so we were just out running some errands. Then I started getting a message about something going on here, so I just raced down here. I would say I was here by about 6:15. This all kicked off at 6 o'clock. So when I got here, it was still sort of people leaving the area, and I was surprised because there were major crowds, even out to Denny, 5th and Denny, which is right outside KOMO Plaza. It was just hordes of people coming down the sidewalk, so you could tell something was going on, and the fire trucks were still trying to get in. So let's go over here, and we'll kind of show you, because this area where we're at near the playground, it's pretty much at this point locked down, and they're just sort of watching it. But there is still, we'll just go up over the top here. And here's some of our witnesses who we spoke to earlier. They're still around. But you can see this is sort of where we think police have really sort of set up the center of their investigation. This is the roundabout right by the Museum of Pop Culture, which is just at the base of the Space Needle. So we're talking, all of this is within 100 yards of the Space Needle here. So we're coming back down, and you can see much more of an active scene. We can see what looks like crime scene technicians are now starting to arrive, and SPD, we saw their mobile precinct that was here, and so it looks like they're started getting their arms now going from a response phase into what is going to be an investigation phase. And then, of course, here we are now at the 7:30 half hour. We're 90 minutes out from when this happened. Some of the main questions that we have here still are total victim count. We've heard from witnesses. One saw 3, one saw 6, and then obviously the shooter. What is going on? Were there multiple shooters, and what do police know about that?
Right. I want to find out, who is the shooter? Where is the shooter? What prompted this? What led up to a mass shooting on a summer night in Seattle at the Seattle Center at an annual tradition, the Bite of Seattle? So many people are there with families, and we're very curious about those victims, of course. How many, and are any of them children? I know that you interviewed one witness who thought perhaps a baby or a child had been hit, but we have not received any confirmation on that yet. We'll check back with you as soon as SPD holds their briefing. There's a lot of information. It's a very fluid situation. We're going to head back over to Tyler Cunnington, who is also live on the scene, sort of on the opposite side of the Seattle Center for us, trying to talk to people and assess what happened tonight. Tyler, I'll throw it to you.
I'm sorry, they're taking. Yeah. Sorry, Michelle. We were just talking. Gentleman here, he just shared some videos with me, which were a little tough to look at. He said he was right there in the thick of it and saw 2 of those people get shot. He said one of them, it appeared it was in the arm. You were saying in the arm.
Why don't we, Tyler? Why don't you bring him in if he's willing to be interviewed? Tyler, why don't you bring him into the frame?
He was preferring not to.
Okay.
He's a little shaken up, so he was preferring
totally
not
understand.
to. We were just asking him that. But he just said it's crazy. He's here with his daughter. His friend, okay, his friend, and they were just right in the thick of it, and it was just craziness. He saw a little kid, he said, get shot or hit by one of those. He saw police helping a man, he said, probably in his 20s, a younger looking man on the ground that looked like he had been hit. You said that gentleman was hit where, sir? You said the gentleman you saw on the ground was hit multiple times, you know, and as we said, we've been hearing different numbers about how many shots were fired. How many would you say you heard?
More than 40.
More than 40. So clear, you know, and obviously with how many victims would you say you might have seen?
At least 7.
At least 7. He was saying that in front of him and behind him. So this was spread around the place in that area. So kind of giving you a little bit of an idea. This was in front of the fountain. Sort of like between the grass and the fountain. Yeah. Okay. So that lines up with what we've been hearing.
Would you repeat that
so
for
just
us?
hearing this now, you know.
Tyler,
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
So
Would you
yeah.
repeat
So he was
that
saying
for
that
us?
this took place. Mm-hmm. Yes. So he was saying this happened right in front of the fountain, kind of right next to where the grassy area then begins, where it kind of opens up, right there on the concrete. And from looking at the video that he just sent me, yeah, it's right there, kind of in front of that construction, where the construction begins for Memorial Stadium. So right in that area, there was a man on the ground, he said, shot multiple times. He also said a small kid he saw was also hit by one of those bullets. You know, he was using his hand to measure it, you know, a small kid, and that he saw at least 7 victims. I think it was 4 in front of him and a few that were behind him. So this was clearly spread out in terms of wherever the shots came from and who they hit. And, you know, so just giving you a little bit of an idea of what people in that area. How busy would you say it was there, sir? How many people would you say were around? Thousands, he's saying, you know, just, and again, as we've talked about, this is a very popular event. It's the final day. It was supposed to be wrapping up at 8 o'clock, but clearly plenty of people were still here. And that just gives you kind of an idea of the severity. Hopefully that one gentleman he saw on the ground is okay. I know Jeremy said that Harborview is taking in patients. And again, hopefully here we'll get some official updates on where things stand, who they may be looking for. Did you see anybody running away? Did you see any people that it could have been?
2 ladies behind me, they shot 2 black guys.
They're saying, he's saying that some women that were right near him saw 2 men right in the area that they think may have been responsible. But yeah, so that's fresh off of speaking with this gentleman here who shared us some videos, and we'll see if we can share those with you later on. But you know, still just people streaming out of here. It looks like, I don't think the Space Needle is open. It looks like people have been kind of coming out of the doors constantly, and there's still people kind of roaming around here, people taking pictures. You know, again, this is a tourist spot. You know, and so on. So that's
and some people maybe not even knowing what happened. You know, you're showing up in our city on a summer night, and suddenly the Seattle Center is locked down, and right now for good reason. We know just a mass police presence all around the facility there. I'm curious, that gentleman that you just spoke with, what happened in terms of, was he able to share with you in terms of people evacuating and scattering quickly, and maybe what he and his friend did? You know, once you start hearing those shots, sounds like he had time to sort of assess a lot of that.
What would you say right in the aftermath? Was everybody just kind of trying to head to an exit? Where did you guys go?
Yes, because it's like 2 police in there.
Yeah.
The tattoo business.
Okay.
And he started screaming.
Yeah. So he said there were officers inside, because obviously this is a big event, and he said right after that happened, they were going over to, it looked like in the video they were going to help those people, but also just yelling, get out, clear out, you know, essentially just telling everybody to move. Obviously they know in advance this is something very serious, and they need to get space. So it just seemed like everybody just sort of heard the cops yelling, and you know, I think most people are going to listen when that's the case. Did you hear anything beforehand? Was there an argument? Was there shouting? It was just chilling, hanging out, trying to eat food. Yeah, I mean, we've seen people walking around with the food that they had, that they then had to leave with.
Yeah, the little kid like seconds before that happened.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. He said, yeah, oh my goodness. Yeah, he's just saying that he saw a little kid, you know, somebody holding their kid, and all of a sudden when this happens, you know, they're turning away, just that natural reaction. But he said it was pretty calm, nothing really happening beforehand, before this all rang out. And again, like we said, so crowded, I think it's hard to spot or identify, you know, what you may have seen, if that. Just with all this going on.
Just for our viewers who might be joining, we just want to explain what's happening here. Tyler has been interviewing a witness for us who has been gracious enough to share what his experience was, not comfortable being seen on TV. So we appreciate both Tyler and that gentleman and his friend sticking around to help fill in the blanks and sort of be our eyes and ears. It is helpful. One of the things that he did mention to you, Tyler, though, is that he thought that perhaps 2 people may be involved. We have not heard any details from Seattle police. So just before I think we're going to jump back over to Jeremy, but before we do that, just Tyler, I just kind of wanted your take on that when you heard him say that there were possibly 2 people responsible. And again, I want to be very clear. This is not confirmed. It is a very fluid situation. We're asking a lot of questions, and I really want to just make sure I qualify it as what it is. This is just what witnesses are hearing and seeing and sort of their perception. But I wonder what your thoughts were when you heard that from him.
Well, you know, so again, and as we're trying to clarify, he said this was, you know, because in that moment, you know, people around that or around you kind of become your friends. Or, hey, did you hear that? My God, did you see that? And it sounds like there were 2 women that he was right near when this happened, who said they saw, or they believe they saw, 2 people that may have been connected to this. But I mean, hearing that, again, with that many bullets being fired, it's hard to imagine, at least again, according to what he said he heard, be hard to imagine that would be one person, unless they had some very, very complicated or sophisticated firearm. And so it would make sense that this could have been more than one person, at least to me, with hearing the different kinds of numbers that have been thrown around by people for the shots that they heard.
Yeah, really varies.
And so in that case, it would make sense. Yeah.
Okay, well, and that's why I asked you. I appreciate your insight on that. Thank you for that. We will check back with you shortly. If you get anything new that warrants breaking in, let me know. I want to get back to KOMO's Jeremy Harris. I believe he was the first reporter, if not one of the first reporters on the scene. He is awaiting a briefing from Seattle police where we have so many questions that we want answered. I also know, I want to remind you that Harborview Medical Center has told us that they are ready and waiting to receive patients. We don't know if they have. We do have a crew in place there, and I want to get there in just a minute. But let's check in with Jeremy Harris first for an update. Jeremy, you with me?
Yeah, Michelle, I am with you this afternoon. I'm gonna walk you through here. We're dealing with some logistics down here, but we have confirmed that out here outside the Museum of Pop Culture, that's where Seattle Police are going to do a briefing here. We don't have an exact timeline on that. I'm just going to show you as we go around the scene here. This is the Space Needle, and then we're just right here at the base of the Space Needle. You can see there is quite a crowd that has now formed here. This is one of the many entrances to the area where the shooting happened on Seattle Center. This is where the media have now gathered, and we have been told to wait here for media representatives from Seattle Police who are going to come down here, and they're going to give us an update and a lot of unanswered questions at this point about what happened here tonight. So I'll give you just a look down here. This is right at the intersection of 5th and Harrison here at Seattle Center. This was one of the main response zones for Seattle Police. You can see these officers came here, ditched their cruisers, and ran into the scene. And then as we come back around here, you'll just be able to see with me as I'm walking you back through here. This is where Seattle Police have things blocked off. And then, of course, these are some of the booths that are, these were all food vendors. So think about this 90 minutes ago. Oh, and here we have, these are federal agents, by the way. This is ATF.
Looks like you might be getting close.
Seattle Police, so
you might be getting close to that briefing. I'm going to let you check in with them and see what's happening. In the meantime, let's go over to Harborview Medical Center. That's where we find KOMO's Lynn Wynn. She has some new information. One of the big questions that we've been asking throughout this mass shooting incident is how many people are actually shot. We've been hearing varying numbers. Lynn Wynn, I want to go to you and find out what you're hearing from Harborview Medical Center, if I can. Lynn Ann?
Yeah, Michelle, we know during these types of incidents, the information is very fluid and constantly changing, but we did get some new information just from Seattle Fire just now. We know that first responders tried life-saving efforts, and despite that, 2 people were declared dead at the scene. We know that a 40-year-old female has minor injuries. She declined transport to the hospital. A 39-year-old woman is in stable condition, and she was taken here to Harborview. A 2-year-old boy also in stable condition. Paramedics also took him to Harborview Medical Center. A 23-year-old man is also in stable condition. Paramedics transported him here to Harborview, and a 56-year-old female in serious condition also here at Harborview. So it looks like 4 adults here at the hospital and 1 child with injuries, and then 2 dead at this point. I did talk to an employee out here. They showed me an email that said that the hospital is on lockdown as of 7 p.m. You can see the police presence, increased police presence, as well as security presence out here. No one is allowed into the hospital right now as they receive patients. Of course, people can leave, but again, no one allowed in here right now. I do want to reiterate the latest information we have from Seattle Fire is that 2 people were declared dead on scene. A 40-year-old female with minor injuries declined transport to the hospital. 39-year-old woman taken to the hospital in stable condition. 23-year-old man in stable condition also at the hospital. A 56-year-old woman in serious condition here at the hospital, and then also a 2-year-old boy in stable condition here at Harborview. But for now, we'll send it back to you.
All right, and Lynn, before you go, so that brings the total victims to 7. Absolutely heartbreaking to hear this, and to learn that families tonight are learning that their loved ones, 2 of them are not coming home. 5 others are in the hospital tonight, ranging in age from 2 years old. All of this really rings true to what we heard from the witnesses, where we were hearing early on 6 or 7 victims. Do we know if Harborview is anticipating receiving any more victims from this incident? Were all the victims shot? Are those the injuries that they're dealing with and responding to, if you know? And then lastly, any sense for how Harborview manned up for this event? In other words, being able to handle mass casualty shooting incident takes a lot of effort and preparation, and we know they are a level 1 trauma center, the only one in the region, so they prepare and train for things like this. But any sense for just sort of getting their arms around this and how they're doing?
I mean, we know Harborview is well versed in receiving trauma patients. They receive many gunshot victims. Typically, when we report on these types of incidents, they are well versed in handling these types of emergency situations. As far as the types of injuries that the victims have, they haven't detailed that yet. We are awaiting more details from the Harborview representatives, and hopefully we'll get a media briefing out here just to get some more details on how those patients are doing. So we'll of course stay out here and continue to bring you updates.
Okay, and I'm curious, I suspect that we may not know, because as you mentioned so appropriately, it is such a fluid situation. Any indication that these 7 victims are the only victims linked to the Seattle Center shooting that happened around 6 o'clock tonight during the Bite of Seattle here?
It's still a very fluid situation. It happened, about 2 hours now at this point.
Right.
So you would have to assume that most of the patients are here at this point. But, there could also be people who decide to self-transport, or maybe later people who have, less serious injuries that show up at other hospitals. So we're just not sure at this point. The confirmed information we have, again, is from Seattle Fire. 2 dead, 5, I believe, injured, including 1 child. Many of those patients here at Harborview Medical Center for now. We haven't seen anybody new come through here. We're standing right outside the trauma center. Haven't seen anybody arrive since then, but we'll of course continue to monitor, continue to share updates that we get from the spokespeople here at Harborview.
All right, Lynn and Wen, thank you for the information. We appreciate it. We'll ask you to stay there and sit tight. If you get anything more, let us know, and we will come back and talk to you. Appreciate the update. A sad one indeed. All right, let's go back out to KOMO's Tyler Cunnington, who is live in front of the Space Needle. Tyler, kind of give us a sense for how things have evolved, what your sense is, what you're feeling, what you're seeing there now.
Well, I will say at first, this was one of the most intense law enforcement responses that I have seen in my reporting career. By this point, I will say it has calmed down quite a bit. Like I was saying before, I'm not sure if the needle is open. It looks like the elevators are still going, but we certainly saw a lot of people coming out of the building earlier. And at this point, there's just people just kind of walking around. I mean, it's pretty calm around here. Like I said before, there were people taking photos, snapping their pictures with the Space Needle. I'm sure some of them getting here just now maybe had, no idea what had happened, probably at this point almost 2 hours ago. But it has calmed down a bit. There are still SUVs blocking off this turnaround area. But we have been seeing unmarked vehicles, marked vehicles at points just kind of racing down the street here, headed somewhere. Not sure where, but we have seen still some, sort of activity from the police. I haven't been back over towards the Mopop backside, which is where I was earlier. I believe Jeremy has been around that area for quite a bit now, so I'm sure he's had a lay of what it looks like over there. But that was extremely heavy because that was really a head-on, just straight, as you go down that path entering Seattle Center, that was essentially where we're told the shooting was. That's where victims were. Again, I was just looking over the videos because I didn't have a lot of time to process them. That gentleman I was speaking with just before, who told me he saw at least 7 victims, a few in front of him, a few behind him, all different ages, a small child. He saw another middle-aged woman, a man in about his 20s. We were just hearing from Lenan about some of the victims that were being sent there, or at least their conditions, at least for the moment. And some of the videos, we will see what we can share potentially on air, or at some point. They are certainly a bit graphic, but a woman who was clearly getting EMS or first responder help lying on the ground. Another one that was sort of a little bit blocked by a tent, but another person laying on the ground, and then another video was just sort of a little bit of the chaos right in the moment of everybody just kind of getting ushered by an officer, kind of out of the way, off the camera. It's as you just imagine in that moment, just so many things going through your head. The man I spoke to and his friend there were just like, obviously concerned for their safety, for their lives, having no clue about what was going on, but obviously then processing and counting, like he said, potentially 7 victims that were on the ground or were visibly injured or had gotten shot. So clearly very chaotic then. But as of right now, we haven't. We're going to take a walk in just a second before you came to us on air. But
sure.
You can walk in a little bit further here and around the museum, the Chihuly Glass Museum. But then over there is where the crime scene tape begins, and kind of going into the playground area. And so there's still some accessibility, but for the most part, it is calmed down significantly, and detectives rightfully, now can work with a clear head, hopefully, and really piece together what happened.
Tyler, I think you're working with James tonight. Can you ask him to just sort of pan the area for me? Let's give people a sense for really how quiet it is.
Yeah.
We'll just have maybe you step off to the side there, and he can just sort of show us what there is to see. And I realize it's not really a lot. One of the things that Tyler was saying is that it wasn't clear if the Space Needle was closed. I've just double checked. It is closed. It is not functioning for the night. One thing we want to make abundantly clear is people should avoid the area. The entire Seattle Center campus is on lockdown, and it has been evacuated. So the people that you see milling around are either showing up now or are still here, but they are outside the caution tape or the police tape, if you will. There is a heavy police presence all around the campus. And I also want to emphasize the road closures are everywhere. It is, I think, almost impossible to get in to the center with a vehicle. There is a staging area that's on Thomas as well as Sewberg Court, that area. That's where we initially got wind that something was going on. SDOT put out an alert saying, heavy emergency response, avoid the area. And one thing led to another, and as we started making calls, we realized that there had been a shooting. Tyler, I see you're back in frame, so go ahead and take it away.
Well, I was just running down to the corner, and it's tough because I can't see the other angle kind of heading towards Mopop, but at least along this stretch it has calmed down a bit. We do hear some sirens passing by here. right behind me. I think they're just trying to get through all the traffic. I mean, again, if you've been down here, you know how busy it is. Our office is right here, so we're very well aware of how the traffic moves around here. And when we were trying to get in initially, of course, I'm blanking on the street name, but as we were trying to get in, I just hopped out of the car because my photographer, James, we were basically just stuck in such a slowdown because all of the sidewalk and really, just basically double, parked along the side of the road. It was just SUV after SUV after SUV from the police department. And it looks like there's still flashing lights there. I can see faintly in the distance. And so I'd imagine right over there, yeah, there's about 5 that are still parked here along this stretch of the road. But yeah, over that corner and going towards that back entrance of Mopop, the playground, and then going into Seattle Center, that was just flooded. And of course, that's, again, as I said, right near the scene where this all apparently happened. And so, but right here out front, you almost wouldn't know what would have happened. And I think Jeremy talked about it earlier of just how disappointing it is to have something like this after such a great annual summer tradition with the Bite of Seattle, with small businesses trying to get a leg up and spread their name out, and people just coming here to get a bite to eat. The gentleman who shared those videos and was talking with me sort of off camera before, if you were with us, he was just saying, they're up in Linwood. They came down just to get some food. They had gotten a few things to eat, and then all of a sudden, this breaks out, and just really, really terrible. But yeah, still plenty of people here coming up, standing on the fountain here, taking some selfies, taking family photos, and so it's calmed down a lot. But I'd imagine it is still very busy over in that corner that I've been describing, closer to the scene. But out front here, yes, you can't get in. They've got the police SUV, as you can see, right behind me, and actually they just set up these white sort of portable cones, so they're really trying to block that off. And all those sort of different entrances around the grounds, you'll not be able to get to. But traffic-wise, it has thinned out quite a bit from the craziness earlier.
Well, people are heeding the call and staying away, and we're glad to hear that. And Tyler, you just brought up a good point. We've had a really wonderful summer, and it's been relatively safe, and particularly with the World Cup in the rearview mirror, and something like this, these types of things can happen anywhere, and it's just sad to see that it's happened in our city on this summer night. We'll come back to you shortly. Thank you for the updates. And I want to head over to KOMO's Jeremy Harris again. He is awaiting a police briefing. Jeremy, I'm sure you have been running sort of the paces there, trying to speak to as many people as you can, from police to witnesses. I don't know if you got to hear what Lynn Ann told us. She's at Harborview, but we have 2 fatal victims and we have 5 others, so we have a total of 7 people. And it really jives with what you were telling us earlier from your witnesses. One of those is a 2-year-old child. I'm happy to report that child is in stable condition, but just a really tragic night in Seattle.
Absolutely. This was the news that everybody here was fearing, that some people weren't going to make it out of this. We've now confirmed, as you just mentioned, we have 2 fatalities from this, 5 other injuries. So those 5 injured are now at Harborview Medical Center. Among those injured, that 2-year-old child, which is just heartbreaking news for everybody who was here. Just now, we're about 2 hours from when the shooting happened. What you can see is we're right here at the base of the Space Needle near the Museum of Pop Culture, just on Harrison, right east of 5th Avenue. SPD has this area locked down. This seems to be where they are sort of setting their staging area. We just saw about 2 minutes ago a large CSI van that responds to major crimes. They have now come in here, and definitely the scene is transitioning from that very active response to now an investigative phase. And boy, do they have a lot of evidence that they're going to need to go through here. They're obviously going to be looking for any shell casings right there where that shooting happened, any other evidence. And Seattle Center does have a lot of cameras. There's also Climate Pledge Arena that's nearby. There's the fountain. There's all of those buildings that are near the Armory as well. And so they're going to be going over some of that video evidence. But really the crucial thing is there were a lot of witnesses, and we know that there were likely a lot of cameras, if not streaming cameras, people who were filming at any given moment. Cameras are going to be rolling at an event like Bite of Seattle. So there were just a lot of witnesses and video and a lot to go through here for Seattle police. But unfortunately, again, that news that we were all dreading to hear tonight is that there were 2 people, unfortunately, family who did not make it out of this scene alive. Those 5 have now been taken to Harborview Medical Center. A 2-year-old child, that is consistent with what one witness told us just a little bit ago, that he said he saw what looked like a child who had been shot, and that is now confirmed from Seattle Fire. They say they did transport a 2-year-old, which is just heartbreaking to think about when you think that that child came with their family here to this event and is now ending the night at Harborview being treated. It's just horrible. I mean, just such a tragedy for everybody involved here. So we are told this is going to be the spot where Seattle Police are going to give their update. We're now 2 hours into this. I would expect Seattle Police to be able to figure out some preliminary details and put somebody in front of a TV camera here shortly. If that doesn't happen, it will be disappointing, but we have been told to be here, and we will have an update for you as that happens live. Michelle?
Yeah, Jeremy, I'm curious, when we did all the preps, right, leading up to the World Cup, there were so many agencies coming together, Seattle Police, the FBI, the Sheriff's Office. Can you give me a sense for who may be on the property working the scene on the other side of the police tape in addition to SPD?
Yeah, so we did see just a little bit ago there were some ATF agents that came out of here. They're valuable because they're alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and explosives. Those are federal agents. They are the experts in firearms. In fact, one agent is just coming through. He's going to come through the crime scene tape here in a second, so you might be able to see him. But anyways, ATF's on scene. We know that. They're experts in firearms, so they can quickly help local police in identifying what firearms may have been used. They have a wealth of resources that they have. So we know the federal agencies are going to be on scene here helping as well. And just not even after the fact, before the fact, I actually know a couple police officers who were here working extra duty. That's all in place because Bite of Seattle draws so many people. When you have a crowd of tens of thousands of people who are going to be down here, there's already going to be police on scene. So witnesses told us it was just instant. There were already officers who were on scene, likely within earshot of the shooting. And to keep in mind, unfortunately, this has been a rather violent weekend, and this is the second time, in fact, Seattle police officers have been on scene when a shooting happened. There were a couple people shot on Capitol Hill just the other night. There were SPD officers who were right there, and we saw a video of them running up the street to go assist at that shooting. So an unfortunately violent weekend here in Seattle, and we're hoping to get some more answers very shortly from Seattle police about really the big question at this point, now that we know that there are confirmed fatalities and there are 5 who are injured who survived. We are hoping the major information we need to know now from police is, do they have somebody in custody?
Jeremy, thank you. I don't mean to cut you off. I want to get over to Harborview Medical Center where a press briefing is happening at this moment. Let's listen in.
If something like this happens, an unfortunate shooting, then we deliver, and that's what we did this evening.
Can you speak to the nature of the injuries at all?
The injuries range from arm, leg, abdomen, so all different parts of the body, depending on where the gunshot wound entered.
Any more updates or details you can share about the 2-year-old in this report?
The pediatric patient is satisfactory.
Nothing more this time.
We want to let the families, have time and come to grips with what they're dealing with. So I want to honor their privacy and just give out some basic information.
With the family, with the hospital being in lockdown, how is family getting access? How are you working with that?
They're working with the families to bring them up to the rooms that are here as a result of the gunshot incident. So they are getting to see their loved ones.
So if family shows up, they should just like security?
They're going to, security's out here. We're working in collaboration with the Seattle Fire Department. So just, it was an incident that we didn't have a lot of information on, so we work hand in hand with Seattle Police Department to assess what the situation is, and we're just, it's a preventative measure, but we want to be safe for the people inside as well as the people outside.
So the hospital is officially on lockdown?
It's on a partial lockdown, but yes, the family members that are here for the incident are being let in to go see their loved ones.
And I'm sorry, can we get a recap again about the patients, the breakdown of the genders and their conditions?
So we have, let me check my, we have a pediatric patient. We have a female who is in surgery. I don't know that age. And the pediatric patient is a male. And then we have another male that's 23 and a 39-year-old female.
And they're all satisfactory, besides the one in the OR?
Yes.
Could you get into any details of why the hospital is on lockdown?
Like I said, we work closely with the Seattle Police Department, and I think there was information at the scene that they weren't sure if there was more than one shooter, so they're going to be conservative and want to take the right steps. And so we're following what they suggested, and we're working very closely with them.
But for now, you're not expecting any more patients?
We're not expecting any more, no.
We had heard on Seattle that a patient was sent to you to Montlake. Do you know if that's true or not?
I had not heard that. I hadn't heard that one went to our Montlake location. No, I hadn't heard that.
Susan, can you speak to at all how hospital staff train for these types of things?
I think when you work at Harborview, you know, it's what we do from a standpoint of trauma. It's our business. And so you have people that love to work here. And there's certain people in the emergency department that love doing that type of work, and they do get training as students. You know, we're an academic medical center, so we have students in training. So it's just something I find that they really love what they do, and they're very good at it. And it's sort of like they're an orchestra. It just all smoothly works. And you wouldn't know there's a trauma coming in. I've been here 25 years, and I've seen some amazing work in there, and the calmness that you see, it's just, it's pretty amazing. And it's gratifying to see the work they do and the lives they've saved.
But as far as mass casualty events, do you guys run drills or anything like that?
We do drills all year, yes. Sometimes you'll see them out here with tents, so yeah, drills are common that we regularly do.
Can you clarify with the lockdown how many SPD officers are here and how many vehicles?
I don't know what SPD. I've seen a few at the corner here, but I don't know what you'd have to ask them.
And so does that mean that people can't walk in right now, or?
It's for the families of the people that have been injured from the gunshot wounds.
We were listening in live. That is Susan Gregg. She is with Harborview Medical Center. She's the public information officer. And I apologize because that audio was a little difficult to hear. So if you were straining to understand what she was saying, I'll just give you a quick review. So bear with me here. She talked about how Harborview Medical Center, they train for this. This is what they do. But we have to keep in mind it is a Sunday night in the middle of the summer, and so what that tells me is that they probably had to call a number of people in when you have not one but 7 people from a mass shooting incident and 2 casualties. They did say that they are reuniting the victims with their families, that the hospital is on partial lockdown. And one of the things that I thought was telling and interesting that she said is, it's the same thing, they don't know what we don't know, and that is, was there one shooter? Is there potentially more than one? She said, we don't know if there's more than one shooter, so we coordinated with Seattle Police, they briefed us, and we went into partial lockdown. Now, there might be something that they do anytime there's a mass shooting, that I'm not clear on. But one thing that I did hear is they weren't sure how many shooters there are. And at this point, we don't know the status of this investigation. Is that shooter at large? We believe that may still indeed be the case. Is there one shooter? We don't know. We're waiting for information on that. I want to go back out live to Lynn Ann at Harborview, if she's still in place, just to kind of get her assessment on what Harborview Medical Center filled us in on. So you can see Susan Gregg here is answering some questions from reporters, but again, 7 people were shot tonight. We know that 2 of them sadly died on scene at the Seattle Center, 5 of them right now being treated at Harborview. Let's get back to Lynn Ann. She first gave us all the information about those victims, and I'd like her to rehash that. If you don't mind, Lynn Ann, just remind us how many people are at Harborview right now, roughly their ages, and what we might know about their condition. Oh, I apologize. We have a little technical difficulty. We lost Lynn Ann's signal, but we will get back to her. I took some quick notes. So we know that there are 2 people that were killed. We know that there's a 40-year-old female that was hurt, and I'm not certain if she was shot, but she did deny treatment. A 39-year-old woman also dealing with a shooting injury in stable condition. A 2-year-old that was also shot. And that was something that we had really heard early on, that perhaps a child was involved. Let's get back to Lynn Ann. I think we've got her signal back up again. I apologize. As we've been saying, it's a very fluid situation. But Lynn Ann, if you would, we had a little difficulty hearing Susan. Maybe just kind of recap what you heard. You probably heard some things that I didn't. So I just want to make sure everybody's clear on what's coming out of Harborview Medical Center tonight on this tragic night in Seattle.
Right, so she pretty much just reiterated the information we had from Seattle Fire. We actually do have Seattle Fire on scene, so we're just trying to confirm a lot of that information. Overall, we know that 2 patients are dead from the shooting. 5 people, including a child, are injured. Here at Harborview Medical Center, they have 3 women, a man, and also a child who were injured. One of those women apparently declined transport at to the hospital. Most of those patients are in satisfactory condition, but one of those patients is in surgery right now. We don't know the status of that person. We do know a 2-year-old child was also injured in this, but they are in stable condition according to the latest information we have from Seattle Fire. So again, to recap, 3 women, 1 man, and 1 child injured in this. The child is in stable condition, most of those patients in satisfactory condition, and one of those women currently in surgery right now. We don't know the status of that person. Michelle?
And, you know, Lynn, I wanted your take on this as well. I heard Susan mention that they're in partial lockdown. They had been in conversation with SPD, and part of that was because they didn't know if there was more than 1 shooter. Did you hear that as well? And what does that tell you, if anything, about where things might stand?
Yeah, you did hear that correctly, and I was out here outside speaking to an employee at the hospital, and they actually showed me an email letting me know that the hospital was on a partial lockdown since about 7 o'clock. She did say just because it was a fluid situation, they weren't sure if Seattle police had the shooter in custody or not. You know, that's typical to bring the hospital on full or partial lockdown. She did mention partial lockdown in this case, so people are not being allowed in right now. We saw a lot of people actually trying to bring food deliveries and flowers to people inside the hospital, and they are not being allowed in right now, as far as I can see anyway.
Right.
But we do also, of course, notice an increased police presence out here, as well as security. I've done, you know, many live shots out here. I've never seen this much security outside, so definitely a noticeable presence out here, noticeable to the neighborhood as well. A lot of people asking us, you know, what's going on, and we've had to tell, you know, some employees out here as well, since this is just so fresh.
Oh my goodness. All right. So my eyes might not be as good as they should be. Tell me what's over your shoulder. I'm thinking that I'm seeing police lining the front door and then maybe going down around the corner. And we know right around the corner is where that emergency entrance is. So the ambulances come right in and out of there. You know, just kind of be our eyes and ears there.
Well, yeah, we do see Seattle police out here as well as security. We've been out here since about, I believe, about 7 o'clock. And so we've been outside the trauma center. We haven't seen anybody new come through. We have seen some AMR ambulances. That's typical, you know, out here. But we haven't seen any new patients. And as a matter of fact, the Harborview spokesperson, Susan Gregg, told us that they are not expecting any further patients this evening. So as far as we know, that should be it as far as, you know, the people who have been injured in this. And again, to recap, we know 3 women, 1 man injured, as well as a 2-year-old boy. That 2-year-old boy in stable condition. Most of the patients here in satisfactory condition, but 1 woman is in surgery.
All right, Lynn Ann, thank you very much for the update there. I appreciate that. We'll check back with you in just a bit. Also new into the KOMO newsroom, we know that multiple agents from the ATF, the Seattle field office, also responded to the incident. That's according to an agency spokesperson, and that's no surprise to Jeremy Harris. He actually cited some ATF agents there on scene, working the scene. I suspect that the FBI is probably on scene as well. Of course, all the local authorities, typically on a situation like this, where it's a mass multiple incident, you're going to have mutual aid. We have been hearing throughout the night from multiple witnesses. Some of them you've heard live on the air. I want to take a listen to one witness that we spoke to just a short time ago.
We came down here to see the other bands because they're free, and it's really a great event with 3 days a row of amazing bands. Our friends the Black Tones played here last night, so we came to see Mid-Pack, and they were playing until 6 o'clock on the Fisher Pavilion stage. And just after 6 o'clock, all of a sudden we heard these sounds coming from, it sounded like over towards the fountain somewhere so that would have been to the north of us, to the right, because we were facing the stage, which is facing west. Yeah. And there was one volley which we heard, and I don't know, multiple shots, but I can't say how many. And then a lot of people didn't react at first because we thought, oh, it must be firecrackers or something. I mean, nobody thought that it was dangerous. But then there was a second volley, and that's when we saw people storming through the area across the Fisher Pavilion lawn, trying to get south and get out of the area. And so at that point, all my friends and I, we grabbed whatever equipment we had, our music equipment, and just started running because we felt like our lives could be in danger at that point. And it was, the crowd obviously knew something we didn't. Mm-hmm. So we reacted to the crowd around us and then ran out. And what surprised me is how many people were able to evacuate that area in such a short period of time. And the fact, I realized, I guess there were some injuries as people were leaving, and we did talk to a man out here whose friend was injured during the people stampeding out. But I was just amazed that so many people were able to get out of the area so quickly without people being injured.
If you're just joining us, I want to bring you up to speed. Just a tragic night in Seattle. Seattle police right now still responding to a mass shooting that happened at the Seattle Center. We've learned that 7 people were shot, and we know that 2 of them died on the scene. KOMO's Jeremy Harris has been working the scene, awaiting a police briefing. I'm curious, speaking of police, Jeremy, if we've heard from Chief Barnes, if he's been on scene, and any indication when we're going to hear from Seattle police.
Yeah, well, Michelle, as you point out here, we have not seen Chief Barnes here at the scene. I don't know if he is in town right now or what, but we are 2.5 hours out from this mass shooting at Seattle Center, and it is frustrating that Seattle police have not put somebody in front of TV cameras to start answering some basic questions about what happened, but we are hoping that happens soon. I will tell you, this area is locked down. This is one of the closest access points to where the actual shooting scene was, but I want to give you, and as you're just joining us, I want to sort of reset the scene here. We're right underneath the Space Needle, and you can see there is the iconic Seattle Space Needle, and then here at the base of that is what's called Seattle Center, which is a large campus. There's the Museum of Pop Culture, the Armory, the monorail. There's a lot of stuff here at Seattle Center. And then as we come back around, our photographer Steve will sort of show you down the street here. We're right just off of 5th and Harrison. This is on the east side of Seattle Center, and what you're looking at is a line of some of the first Seattle police officers who responded here. You can note they've parked their cruisers in such a way they wanted to make sure that they left a line open for ambulances to get in and out, and so that's some of the leftover from the initial response to this. And of course, this whole area, I mean, there have got to be hundreds of Seattle police officers here right now, or over 100, as they've got this area locked down. We know they're also getting assistance from federal agents. We have seen the ATF that is on scene. We believe the FBI is also here, and I did see what looked to me like a state patrol car that was also here assisting. So of course, in these sort of mass shooting scenarios, it is all hands on deck. Anybody who can get down here, it comes down. But we've definitely seen at the scene right now is transitioning from very active response phase to now investigation phase. We saw the crime scene investigation van come in. They went right down here maybe about 40 minutes ago, and I'll step out of the way here. You can see this gaggle of Seattle police officers here. They are among the dozens who have got this, are on lockdown duty. They are just basically watching all of the points. We've seen some of the vendors have been coming back. They've actually been trying to get back in to go to their food booths because because by of Seattle, there are going to be hundreds of vendors, booths. They're going to have all sorts of different types of food vendors and merchants who come down here, and this is a huge event for them. Of course, at any given time, there's thousands of people down here during Bite of Seattle, so some of them have been trying to come up and they've been asking the police, can we go back in and get our stuff? And the police have made it very clear to them, you are not getting into this scene anytime soon. This place is going to be locked down at least for the rest of the night, likely well into tomorrow, if not even further, as they go through and sort of piece through. What we also don't know, and we did hear that there may have been some people who'd run into the Seattle Armory, and that so I'm sure police are going to have to clear that building. They're going to have to go through very methodically and sort of piece by piece, go through, make sure they've got everything, get everybody out of that area, and then make room for their investigators to come in. They are going to have help from federal agents on this, which would be expected in a situation like this. And I'll step back out so you can see this is a row of Seattle police officers who are coming down here. So they're coming back from the area where the fountain is. Then we're here at the base of the Space Needle sort of Museum of Pop Culture. There's a roundabout on Harrison. That's right where we're at. And we're hoping that Seattle police can bring somebody and start answering some questions. Of course, we've confirmed the victim count. We know that there were fatalities. And the big question, though, is, of course, what is happening with the shooter, and do they have somebody in custody, and what do they know at this point? So that's some of what you're seeing. You're seeing what we're seeing, and you're sort of learning this with us in real time as we're going here. So we appreciate the patience, and we are hoping to get information as soon as possible about do police know about what led up to this, and is the shooter in custody? Do they have a suspect or suspects outstanding? What do they know? We'll bring that to you live as it happens, but we are expecting that to happen here. We just don't know when. Michelle?
All right, and I'm hoping, Jeremy, that, and I know that you're going to do this without me asking, but I'm hoping that you can speak to some of the authorities there and see if we can shake that tree and find out what's happening. People need to know what is happening. This has been a mass shooting. Very often in these types of cases, we see the police chief on site. I know we haven't seen him. I don't know if he's in town. We will reach out here on our end as well and find out what is happening and press SPD to try to get some information. They've released one tweet, which was earlier in the night, just confirming. Let me read it to you. Police are investigating a shooting, multiple shooting victims, shots fired at the Seattle Center. More information to come. Please avoid the area. That's all at this point that we have heard from Seattle police. We did get much more information from Seattle Fire regarding the victims. I'll just remind you, there have been 7 victims, 2 fatalities. We do not know the ages of those 2 fatal victims, but sadly they died on scene. We know they were at the Seattle Center campus right in the middle of the Bite of Seattle. Earlier tonight, this was around 6 o'clock, when people were enjoying the Bite of Seattle. There are 3 different stages at the Seattle Center, so music was happening throughout the venue. People were having a Sunday night at the Bite when shots rang out. We understand it was near the International Fountain. People just scrammed. They hit the ground. They saw people go down. One of the things that we haven't heard from most of the witnesses is who was firing the shots. Was there more than one person? That we don't know. Even Harborview Medical Center, who has received 5 of the victims, told us that they don't know how many shooters there may or may not be. They don't know the status of an arrest or a person of interest. Thus, they put the hospital in partial lockdown. Speaking of Harborview, KOMO's Lynn Wynn is there now. She has been monitoring what's happening. As we know, families have been arriving to check on their loved ones. So, Lynn, we have 5 shooting victims there at Harborview who are being treated right now, correct?
Yes. Well, we have 5 patients injured, but 1 apparently denied transport to the hospital. So according to Seattle Fire anyways, 4 of those patients are here at Harborview, including a 2-year-old child. I want to step out of the way so you can see the security presence outside here. Definitely noticing an increased security presence as well as SPD presence. The hospital, of course, is on a partial lockdown right now, not allowing anybody inside. Of course, people can leave if they want to. A small crowd is gathering outside here. Not quite sure if they are here to visit any of the shooting victims or if they are just here to visit hospital patients that are already here. But we have seen people, food deliveries, people with flowers trying to get inside. Again, hospital has been on partial lockdown since about 7 o'clock. And we did speak with Harborview's spokesperson a few minutes ago. She confirmed, again, 2 dead from this shooting, 5 people, including a child, injured. Among the injured are 3 women, 1 man, and a 2-year-old child. Most of those patients are in satisfactory condition here at Harborview. 1 woman is currently in surgery, and we don't know the status of that person. I also asked what the nature of their injuries are, and she, the spokesperson here at Harborview, said, you know, as far as their injuries, things like arm, leg, abdomen, but didn't really have the breakdown on which patients and what types of injuries each patient had. But again, we know that a number of patients are here. In total, the injured 3 women, 1 man, and 1 2-year-old child. Most of those patients, including the child, are in satisfactory condition. 1 woman we know is currently in surgery, and we don't know the status of that person. Michelle.
All right, and Lynn Ann, I'm curious if you've had a chance to speak to any families coming and going. Of course, we as the media, we're not going to be their priority. They want to get in and talk to loved ones, so I know that's a big ask, but I'm curious what you've seen in terms of families coming to reunite with their loved ones and just the activity there outside the hospital.
I'm not quite sure if we've seen any families come here, arrive quite yet. We have seen a lot of people outside the hospital again, you know, trying to get in. We've tried to speak to some people. They were not connected with the shooting at Seattle Center. So far, we haven't been able to make contact with any people connected with any of the people injured in that shooting. But we'll, of course, continue to be outside the hospital trying to get updates on the status of the people injured here.
And you said that there were people in the neighborhood there who lived by Harborview who were very curious about what was happening. I think that word is probably slowly spreading about this mass shooting at the Seattle Center.
People are still very much still learning about this. It did happen about 2.5 hours ago, but they've definitely noticed an increase, of course, media presence, increased security presence, and of course the SPD units that are outside here. This is, as we've mentioned multiple times, a level 1 trauma center, so it's not unusual to see, you know, some media out here as well as SPD officers, but this, of course, is an increased presence of Seattle police, and of course people are noticing the cameras, a lot of media presence out here, just kind of asking, you know, hey, what's going on. So we've actually had to tell a couple people out here what is happening.
Yeah, sometimes it happens that way. All right, Lynn Ann, thank you for all the information and your help. We're going to keep you right there. We'll come back to you if there's anything that develops or happens throughout the evening. We have been, as you know, throughout the evening talking to different witnesses and hearing from them. I want to listen in on a witness that we just heard from a short time ago who was there at the Seattle Center earlier tonight around 6 o'clock when a mass shooting happened. 7 people shot at the Seattle Center. Let's take a listen.
Like, I was in the process of getting food, right? You know, we were all talking, having a good time, and next thing you know, you just hear a couple shots go off. And like, in my head, I'm not thinking nothing of it, because like, you know, at first I thought it was like some fireworks. Then I had to really sit and think, boom, they're shooting. So like, I look around, see if it's like something serious. Boom, I see a crowd of people running in the background. So boom, I took off. Next thing I know, it was just everybody was running everywhere.
That is a similar story that we have heard from everybody. A lot of people were around the International Fountain area when the shots rang out and they saw people go down. And at that point, everybody just scattered, and it was extremely chaotic, as you can imagine. We have been working this for the last 2.5 hours, waiting on Seattle police for some information. Up until this point, all we have is confirmation that there was a mass shooting and an investigation is underway, and they have asked people to avoid the Seattle Center area. That area is in complete lockdown. The Space Needle shut down early. The Bite of Seattle wrapped up early, shortly after this shooting happened at 6 o'clock. You cannot get on the campus, the Seattle Center campus, about 74 acres, very walkable, a lot of people there at the time, shut down. We are waiting again on Seattle police, and I want to get to KOMO's Tyler Cunnington. He has moved his location and has some newer information for us, awaiting SPD response. Tyler.
Well, Michelle, we just got reports, so we came over to this spot. We're standing right here, just in front of the IMAX theater. I'm going to have my photographer zoom in here. You can make out between those two sort of SUV vehicles. What we can see is an armored vehicle that we were told pulled up here. We're not sure what units it may be comprised of, what they may be looking for, what building they might be trying to access. Still a couple questions. We're trying to clarify what it is, but we did just see that this came over here very recently because we've been in this area for quite a while, and we had seen this sort of stretch of this pathway pretty clear, and now we can see some kind of armored vehicle or plated vehicle up there, kind of up this hill. You just heard from Talijah, the young gentleman that we were just interviewing before, talking about his experience there near the fountain. We just spoke with another pair of people, a boy and a girl, who were just let out of the Space Needle. This was probably just 10 minutes ago at this point. They say that they were right there in the thick of it when the shots happened. They were near the fountain, or they say they were about a football field away. So they heard it, and then just had all that craziness. And then what happened is they then sort of flowed out. They followed everybody, kind of scattering from the area. And then apparently there were employees waving people to say, get inside. And they stayed away from the windows for about 5 to 10 minutes. So there were all these people sort of harbored and brought inside to the base of the Space Needle, and then they sent people elevator by elevator up to the top to get away from the ground, to get away from the scene and the potential danger. So clearly some smart thinking and swift actions by those working within the Space Needle and here at Seattle Center. But they just, after about 2 hours, were finally brought back down to the bottom and let out, and we caught those people as they were streaming out, and we spoke to them. And, I had, unfortunately, broke the news to them, given this is such a rapidly evolving situation, about the 2 victims who lost their lives and the 5 that are injured, including that small child, excuse me. And that was just devastating to them. They said they were just absolutely devastated. I'm told that we have some video that I got earlier. If you've been on the air with us, if you're just joining now, I spoke with a gentleman who was right next to the shooting when it happened. He took videos right afterwards. It is a bit graphic. I believe you may be seeing it on your screen right now. If not, they will take it to show you. It's graphic. We have blurred it. But he said he saw at least 2 victims on the ground that he took those videos of. One looks like it's an older woman, perhaps middle-aged woman. Another one he said was a man in his 20s. This somewhat aligns with the ages we've been hearing from the victims from Harborview Medical Center. He also said he saw that little boy, the young child who was also injured in this shooting that we've been hearing about. I know another set of witnesses said they saw that boy getting helped by EMS and by first responders on the ground, and when they tried to pick him up to move him, he looked pretty limp, and that he didn't seem very responsive. So of course our thoughts are with that family and all of the families that are currently being impacted by this, with their loved ones either injured or, of course, the worst fate, losing their lives. So many people here bearing witness to that, and we've been speaking to just some of them, but the stories repeat one after another. Just terror, shock, confusion, and getting out of there, getting to safety, getting inside the Space Needle, running away, getting back to a safe spot, and it has just been really difficult for all the people. That gentleman, that Talijah that you spoke to, or I'm sorry, that you just saw on your screen earlier, talking about his experience, he said he came up from Tacoma, first time he ever wanted to check out Bite of Seattle, and he said, I'm afraid I may not come back. Just because of how traumatic this experience was, and again, telling him the news about the lives lost and those that are injured, he was just devastated. He said this is not something that should be happening in such a public space with family members and loved ones and kids, as we are, of course, having to accept the reality that there is a very young boy that was injured in this process. Again, as of right now, still closed off. You can see the police line laid out here and in multiple other spots. We've been as the media, we have been allowed to stay here, but otherwise everybody else has been told to even stand clear of the tape and exit the Seattle Center grounds. Of course, all those people being let out of the Space Needle, like I said, we're told we're being directed and motioned by employees to head right out of the property. But as of right now, we've seen that armored vehicle move in up there, just up the hill there within the property, to assist in this investigation in some kind of manner. But it was not here earlier, and we're unsure what it may be for. But just a lot, Michelle.
Yeah,
and this is what we've been hearing from people.
Yeah, it's a lot. It is a lot to to digest here, and it's not the thing that anybody expected on a Sunday night in Seattle, at the Bite of Seattle, of course, and that is why it is paramount that we hear from Seattle Police. We need to know what happened and what they know and what they can tell us with regard to. Has somebody been arrested? Is there even a person of interest in custody? I think that the conversations that you've had, the video that you just shared with us, really helps fill in some of the gaps to help explain just how chaotic it was when you have people running literally for their lives, and now we're hearing that they went wherever they could. And Tyler, you spoke to people who went into the Space Needle and just took cover there. We know others who went into the Armory, others who just ran as fast as they could. This is video that one of the witnesses shot. He's a man who was there with his friend who said that he actually saw multiple victims. He thought that there were 7 victims, and he was absolutely right. So we know, again, that there are 2 people that lost their lives in this mass shooting that happened at the Seattle Center at 6 o'clock tonight. 5 others were shot. We know 4 are being treated right now at Harborview Medical Center. I want to go back to Tyler for just a second. I know it's getting dark, but Tyler, if you're still with me, can we get a closer look at that tactical vehicle? And let's you and I talk a little bit about what that might mean. So let's push into that. Mm-hmm. And I know these are often referred to as a Bearcat, and they're law enforcement uses, sorry, I'm not sure if you lost my audio there, but they are a heavy-duty vehicle, and you can just get a sense for it. You see it, it's right there in the middle, in between these 2 vehicles. It's a tactical unit, right, and they, my understanding is that they are bullet resistant. So I'm kind of wondering, well, what does that tell us? Sometimes they're used, I know, to transport crews into the scene and equipment. So I kind of wanted your sense on that, and I know you mentioned a minute ago that it'd be nice if we could hear from police on what we're seeing.
Well, that's exactly right. It's just so many questions that would certainly be put at ease once we can get that update. From what I could see, taking sort of a different angle, it looks like there is somebody standing in the driver's seat door of that vehicle. So I'm not sure if it's as intense. I do know that they usually have those hatches on the top that sometimes people are standing in and maybe operating something. We did just hear, while you were speaking there, we heard a very loud sort of intercom, sort of megaphone giving some kind of direction. The sound may be traveling odd. It sounded as if it was to our left here, going towards the gas station that's right outside of Seattle Center. But perhaps it could be coming from the vehicle up there, because as we know, whenever there's those armored situations and any kind of direction trying to be given to somebody, that's when they'll break those out and give those instructions over the microphone. It was really hard for me with hearing you speaking in my ear and also trying to catch where that may have been coming from. It really sounded like it was behind us. I don't know if that was a vehicle in the road trying to direct people out, or if it was up from this vehicle up here. Again, as you mentioned, they're bulletproof. There's usually, it signifies something is happening. And again, we don't know about a suspect or suspects and their status. Is somebody in custody? We've seen, some images online circulating of people being walked away by a police officer, but we haven't gotten any confirmation, and that's been the difficult part. But the witnesses told me they heard pretty consistently. I was told that there were 2 different firearms that went off. One that sounded normal, in the sense of a bang, 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 and then a second that sounded rapid fire. Hear about those illegal switches that people can create and put onto their guns that let it sort of rapid fire and sort of alter how it shoots normally. Very clearly, it sounded like that and a normal sort of firearm, and so that signifies, you know, potentially two people were firing that. We're hearing right now that the megaphone again. I'm going to try to walk up here, if I'm allowed, to see what this is.
Okay, we appreciate that. We'll sort of listen in as well for just a moment.
Trying to see where that may be coming from. Well, there's an SUV, SPD SUV right down this path on the other side of this statue or this, you know, sculpture. It looks like they may be looking into the inside of the IMAX. I'm not sure if this might mean there's somebody of interest in there. I'm not sure if the intercom came from there. It does look like there's a couple officers just sort of talking to one another. So I'm not sure. I don't want to speculate, but we heard another round of that loud sort of intercom. I ran out of there's my photographer. But there is one that's kind of up here on this path. There is crime scene tape over here as well, although I believe this has been up anyways because the path isn't paved anymore, so I'm not sure if that's due to the scene or if that's already been existing from the times that I've been in here.
Okay.
But yeah, we will keep our ears open to see if we catch that again. It may be that there's some kind of focus happening in this corner of the grounds, but again, we have no clue, and hopefully we will get an update from police, as we've kept saying.
Tyler, thank you for that. I appreciate it, being our eyes and ears out there. And as I've mentioned before, hopefully this will all become much clearer as we hear from Seattle Police. Again, we are awaiting a press briefing. We heard that probably about 6:30 earlier this evening, so we've been waiting a long time for that. We've been also hearing from a lot of witnesses, and we have another one that we'll get to shortly. But at first, I want to go to Harborview Medical Center and listen in on what we're hearing from those folks who are treating the 4 people who were transported to Harborview Medical Center, 4 shooting victims, one of them including a 2-year-old child listed in stable condition.
We have 4 patients that arrived to Harborview Medical Center, which is the level 1 medical center, trauma center, and we are part of UW Medicine. And they're all here. They're being treated. 3 of them are satisfactory, and 1 female went to the OR, and she is the other patient.
The updates from the firefighters said that 5 people were injured, so is there any update on that one other person?
I haven't heard that we're going to have another patient come here. We had 4 that we are aware of, but we're ready if we need to treat another patient.
How busy was the trauma center when all those folks came in?
You know, it's a busy time for Harborview. It's the trauma center. It's the summer, so it's very busy. But you know, this is what we're meant to do. We're always ready because we're the level 1 trauma center. So if something like this happens, an unfortunate shooting, then we deliver, and that's what we did this evening.
Can you speak to the nature of the injuries at all?
The injuries range from arm, leg, abdomen, so all different parts of the body depending on where the gunshot wound entered.
And any more updates or details that you can share about the 2-year-old who was here?
The pediatric patient is satisfactory.
And nothing more this time?
Yeah. We want to let the families, you know, have time and come to grips with what they're dealing with, so I want to honor their privacy and just give out some basic information.
With the family, with the hospital being in lockdown, how is family getting access? How are you working with that?
They're working with the families to bring them up to the rooms that are here as a result of the gunshot wound incident, so they are getting to see their loved ones.
So if family shows up, they should just talk to security?
They're going to, security's out here. We're working in collaboration with the Seattle Fire Department. So just, you know, it was an incident that we didn't have a lot of information on, so we work hand in hand with Seattle Police Department to assess what the situation is, and we're just, you know, it's a preventative measure, but we want to be safe for the people inside as well as the people outside.
So the hospital is officially on lockdown?
It's on a partial lockdown, but yes, the family members that are here for the incident are being let in to go see their loved ones.
And I'm sorry, can we get a recap again about the patients, the breakdown of the genders and their conditions?
So we have, let me check my, we have a pediatric patient. We have a female who is in surgery. I don't know that age. And the pediatric patient is a male. And then we have another male that's 23 and a 39-year-old female.
And they're all satisfactory, besides the one in the OR?
Yes.
Could you get into any details of why the hospital is on lockdown?
Like I said, we work closely with the Seattle Police Department, and I think there was information at the scene that they weren't sure if there was more than one shooter, so they're going to be conservative and want to take the right steps. And so we're following what they suggested, and we're working very closely with them.
But for now, you're not expecting any more patients?
We're not expecting any more, no.
We had heard on scanner that a patient was sent to you to Montlake. Do you know if that's true or not?
I had not heard that. I hadn't heard that one went to our Montlake location. No, I hadn't heard that.
Susan, can you speak to at all how hospital staff train for these types of things?
I think when you work at Harborview, you know, it's what we do from a standpoint of trauma. It's our business. And so you have people that love to work here, and there's certain people in the emergency department that love doing that type of work, and they do get training as students. You know, we're an academic medical center, so we have students in training. So it's just something I find that they really love what they do, and they're very good at it. And it's sort of like they're an orchestra. It just all smoothly works. And you wouldn't know there's a trauma coming in. I've been here 25 years, and I've seen some amazing work in there, and the calmness that you see, it's just, it's pretty amazing. And it's gratifying to see the work they do and the lives they've saved.
But as far as mass casualty events, do you guys run drills or anything like that?
We do drills all year, yes. Sometimes you'll see them out here with tents, so yeah, drills are common that we regularly do.
Can you clarify with the lockdown how many SPD officers are here and how many vehicles?
I don't know what SPD. I've seen a few at the corner here, but I don't know what. You'd have to ask them.
And so does that mean that people can't walk in right now, or?
It's for the families of the people that have been injured from the gunshot wounds.
You were listening live to, or actually that was a recording from a live briefing that we brought you just a short time ago from Susan Gregg. She is the public information officer for Harborview Medical Center, has been working there for decades, and sadly has covered other mass shootings before. But what we have learned here is that all the victims are accounted for. I'm showing you some drone video right now into the newsroom. Just kind of want to just give you a sense. This was shortly after the incident, and you can see it's pretty much cleared out. Over the three-day event for the Bite of Seattle, they were expecting about 350,000 people. So let's just split that up over 3 days. So like potentially, 100,000 people there today. It's the last night. It's always a big draw. They have 3 musical stages that are set up, and lots of vendors and marketplaces and cooking demos, you name it. So there's a lot that was happening tonight, so I anticipate there were a lot of people there. But how eerie and unusual is this? You see the police cars lined here outside the Seattle Center, and then I see just a line of officers standing there, I believe, by the crosswalk, and a police cruiser preventing people from coming and going. And all of the trucks and the rigs that are there tell you that the vendors that were here had to scram and leave everything. One of the things we're hearing is a lot of people took cover in the armory on the campus, as well as the Space Needle, just running for cover. We understand that looking at this drone video into our newsroom of the Seattle campus, this is about 74 acres. Just a few people milling around here, and this was a good bit after the shooting. It took a minute because of all of the traffic and all of the emergency response completely surrounding the perimeter of the Seattle Center to actually get in there. but it was evacuated, and it remains that way. The bite of Seattle cut short tonight. Space Needle closed early, and at this hour we are waiting on Seattle police to learn more about what happened. But we are hearing from some others. We're hearing from some political leaders. I want to get to some of the statements that have been here in my inbox. We've got a statement from State Representative Pramila Jayapal. It reads this: we are monitoring closely information from the shooting that took place at the Seattle Center this evening. We are in close touch with Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson and Governor Bob Ferguson, and coordinating across multiple levels of government to get updates on the situation. We are grateful to law enforcement at SPD and first responders who are at the scene and working hard. Our hearts go out to all those impacted by the senseless violence. We ask that the public please stay away from the Seattle Center, as there is still an active investigation happening at this time. I've been talking about it over and over again. It remains a fluid situation, despite the fact that that campus is in lockdown. Also hearing tonight from King County Executive Gurmai Zahalai. He released the following statement after the shooting at the Seattle Center. He writes, "I'm horrified by the shooting at Seattle Center this evening during the bite of Seattle. As someone who grew up in this community, I know what this event means to so many families, young people, and neighbors across our region. For years, the bite has been one of Seattle's signature summer traditions. To see violence at a place that brings so many people together is heartbreaking and unacceptable. My heart is with the victims and their loved ones, those who were senselessly injured, Seattle Center employees and vendors, and everyone who has been traumatized by the experience. I am also grateful for the first responders who rushed in to protect others and care for the injured." Also, we are, as I mentioned, waiting for a press briefing from Seattle Police. What we don't know tonight is a shooter or a person of interest in custody at this hour. As you saw in some of the video that Tyler just showed you, there's an armed vehicle there. There has been some movement on campus. So we're assuming things are happening, but we're hoping to hear something shortly from police. We have also heard from Governor Bob Ferguson. You heard Pramila Jayapal mention the governor. He writes on X about the shooting: "I'm receiving briefings regarding the ongoing response to the tragedy at the Seattle Center. The Washington State Patrol SWAT team is on the way to assist." That's a new piece of information. Then at the request of Seattle Police Department, police continue to avoid the area. If you are in the area, please follow directions from law enforcement. My prayers are with the families of the victims and the responders as they work to keep people safe. So again, that is a statement from Governor Bob Ferguson. One of the things that we learned new there is that State Patrol, their SWAT team, also on scene, and they are assisting. We believe the FBI is there. We know we've seen the ATF there. Seattle Police, this is their operation. They are leading the command, and we are waiting to hear from them. I want to get back out to my colleague, Jeremy Harris, who I believe was the first reporter, if not one of the first reporters on scene. He's been there for us all night. Jeremy, any new information, any sign, any indication when police are going to fill us in?
Yeah, well, Michelle, unfortunately, we're now 3 hours into this incident since the shots were fired here at Seattle Center, and we do not have Seattle Police standing in front of TV cameras to talk to us about what happened. At this point, we do not know if they have the shooter in custody, if there were multiple shooters, or what information initial officers and investigators have been able to piece together about what happened. I will tell you that just in the last few minutes, I've been in touch with the staff for Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson. They just sent me a statement. I'm going to read in part of that. She says, "What happened at the Seattle Center today was an act of horrific violence. Impacted families are living through the worst moment of their lives, and an entire community is trying to understand how a gathering built around culture, connection, and joy ended in gunfire." The mayor's statement goes on to appreciate the Seattle police officers and firefighters, as well as the medical personnel who jumped in to help in this situation. And to speak to what the mayor is referring to there, we know there were Seattle police officers who were here, as well as King County Sheriff's deputies, doing security for Bite of Seattle. Of course, this is an event with tens of thousands of people. There are going to be police on scene. In the moment those shots were fired, those officers heard it and ran right to it. We do not know, though, if they were able to catch the shooters or exactly what that initial interaction looked like. And to speak to a little bit what Tyler was telling us just a little bit ago about the SWAT teams that have been here and the armored vehicles and all that, that is potentially they have got a lot of territory that they've got to go in and make sure is cleared. And what I mean by that is they have got the Armory, they have got a lot of buildings that are here on the Seattle Center campus, and they're going to have to go through every one of those buildings with a fine-tooth comb. In a situation like this where there's a lot of people who are shot and a lot of people trying to run, they're going to have to go through and actually methodically go through those buildings. So Michelle, we'll keep you updated here if we get an update or if we have Seattle Police come out for a press conference, which we are expecting.
Jeremy, we'll count on it. Thank you very much for keeping us posted. I know if you hear something, you will let me know immediately. We want to come back to you. I do want to get back out to Tyler Cunnington. I understand, Tyler, that there's been some activity. You mentioned earlier that you noticed some comings and goings at maybe the IMAX theater there.
Yes, Michelle. Well, like we were on air earlier, I said we were hearing those sort of intercom or loudspeaker megaphone messages, and then we had a colleague of ours who lives in the area told us that he saw this very, very active presence here. I'm going to step off just to show you what we can. We were just moved back probably about 25 yards just minutes before we came onto the air, but we're right here standing next to the Packard Theater, the Packard IMAX Theater, as well as the Seattle Children's Theater. This is Sue Bird Court going up to essentially into Seattle Center. We are seeing very, very heavily armored police units with large firearms. We've got Seattle police officers that are right here up at this intersection, and really a lot of the attention is right here facing towards both of the theater buildings. Again, we just got moved back from what I could see. A lot of them were looking really just kind of focused in onto this corner, and there are some of those again, very much armored and wearing lots of tactical gear. Police officers, at least how they were marked on their backs, but this would line up with the Bearcat that we are seeing. And actually, we're going to show you just really quickly right here some of those tactical units here walking in. You can see they've got obviously the helmets, the larger firearms, the assault rifles. They're just moving in here underneath the tape that was just set up to walk in there. And again, what I was saying was this lines up with the where we saw that armored vehicle where we were zooming in. This is basically just a different angle where we came up to, but we were able to get a lot closer. But we just got moved back, as I mentioned. But a lot of the focus seems to be right here on the theater, sort of this back side, sort of loading dock or a sort of garbage area. And we've got multiple, an entire row of SPD SUVs, which you might be seeing right at the crest of this hill where we're standing. Some of those red and blue lights, there was a whole line of them going down that way. And so there's certainly a lot of attention being focused in on right here, sort of on the backside of the theaters here. So again, unclear if they are looking for a person, but I would have to imagine this much attention means something important is nearby, and they are continuing to work and speak to us on camera about how this whole investigation is unfolding. Again, the Bearcat up there, armored units, and there are some moving in here right now, including looks like another one of those armored units vehicles. They're going to be moving up the police tape to let them through. They're stopping just short here to get out. This is it's hard for me to read what it says. I believe that says State Patrol Rescue. They're stopping just short here. Two of these very heavily armored four-wheel vehicles just pulling up here. Looks like they're touching base with the units on scene before they move in. So again, adding to the urgency and the seriousness of this scene right here. Again, unclear if there's a suspect inside or if there's something of very key importance to this investigation. Suppose these trucks are going to be driving up here any second, but yeah, we just wanted you to come to us now just because of this very apparent scene we've came across. Again, this is Sue Bird Court on the backside of the Packard IMAX and the Seattle Children's Theater. Leading up towards the Fisher Pavilion in Seattle Center. And of course, this is not very far from the actual scene that we've been hearing about from where the shooting took place. So hopefully we will get more information soon, but for now, as you can see, we've got State Patrol rescue armored vehicle here, two of them, getting ready to pull up here on Subird Court.
All right, Tyler, thanks very much for that. I want to get to a statement that is just now into our newsroom. We're getting some clarity for the very first time. We are hearing that 2 suspects are in custody. I'm going to read from the mayor's statement here. This is posted on her on the website, seattle.gov. You can check it out yourself. But I want to thank the Seattle police officers who responded to the scene and took 2 suspects into custody. I also want to recognize Seattle firefighters and medical personnel at Harborview who are treating the injured, as well as Seattle Center and event staff and bystanders who help people reach safety and provide aid in a terrifying circumstance. And here's the statement that she issued to our newsroom. What happened at the Seattle Center today was an act of horrific violence. Impacted families are living through the worst moment of their lives, and an entire community is trying to understand how a gathering built around culture, connection, and joy ended in gunfire. No one should have to weigh the risk of being shot before attending an event, gathering with friends, or experiencing their city. Our first responders are supporting grieving families, caring for the injured, and providing clear and accurate information for the public. I want to thank the Seattle police officers who responded to the scene and took 2 suspects into custody. I also want to recognize Seattle firefighters and medical personnel at Harborview who are treating the injured, as well as Seattle Center and event staff and bystanders who help people reach safety and provided aid in terrifying circumstances. We know that many people who were not physically injured will carry what they experienced today for a long time. That includes witnesses, workers, first responders, and everyone waiting to learn whether someone they love is safe. That in tonight, just from Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson, after a fatal shooting, 2 people shot and killed, 5 others also shot. Also want to go back to that video if we can, or at least discuss the video that we saw, that scene from Jeremy, where it's a very active scene. The SWAT team from State Patrol has just arrived on scene, looks very active. So a little bit of confusion there in terms of what is happening. 1, we hear 2 suspects in custody, and then 2, we see an active situation. Perhaps it's just a matter of what Jeremy Harris had mentioned to us earlier, and that is authorities going through inch by inch every vehicle, every building on the Seattle Center campus. I want to get to Jeremy Harris, who has been awaiting a police briefing. Jeremy, your thoughts on what the mayor just said, and 2, what Tyler was showing us. I know you're not far from that scene.
Yeah, of course. Well, we know that this is likely going to be a scene well into tomorrow, if not even further into the week. So police have got a lot of work to do here. We know they're going to need additional resources to do that. Of course, the mayor's statement there confirming the Seattle police, in their very early response to this, took 2 people into custody, which is good news, but it really does not answer the question about what do investigators know about what happened. Do they believe both of those people who were taken into custody fired off guns? Was this a shootout scenario? Was this one person who was firing? All of those are still unanswered questions. I've also been texting with members of the city council just now. They tell me that they are here at the scene and they are doing a leadership huddle with city leadership. I have to imagine if the mayor is in town, she is here, but I do know members of the city council are here meeting with police leadership. So my guess is, and this is just my guess, is that at some point we're going to see all of them come down here and they'll do some sort of a joint press briefing. That would be the hope, because we're 3 hours into this and we have yet to speak to anybody official from police or the city leadership on camera. So we are hoping to get that at some point, but we know there are a lot of questions here about what went down right in that initial point. Was there some sort of a conflict? Of course, as I pointed out earlier, when you have a crowd like this and you've got tens of thousands of people, and in that immediate area, thousands of people right around that fountain, any sort of gunfire in that crowd is going to hurt a lot of people. One witness told me that he heard a couple of dozens of rounds fired. In that case, it is not surprising that several people were injured, and unfortunately 2 people were killed in this. And so still, we know investigators are going to go back through. They're going to be talking to those who were involved, those who were closest to it, and with the confirmation here from the mayor that they do have 2 people in custody. That is a very good development, and hopefully police are able to get some information out of those folks. We don't know at this point if they're saying that those were the shooters or if they were both shooters or what their involvement was. But we know from the mayor 2 people involved, and we know city leadership here on scene tonight doing a huddle, so we're hoping that they'll come out and talk to us here shortly.
Jeremy, I think that that's a really good point. 2 suspects in custody. You know, we can't definitely say that these are the shooters, but 2 suspects in custody, you would assume that they are connected to the shooting and perhaps indeed the shooter shooters. You're our operations crime and justice reporter. I have to get your take on this. The mayor says two are in custody, but yet we see all of this activity. We see the SWAT team from Washington State Patrol roll on scene. You've seen FBI there. The ATF is there, SPD all over this place, and I suspect a lot of other agencies are also helping. So is it possible that perhaps there is a third shooter, or there might be other outstanding individuals or person of interest? What's your take on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, police, they don't want to make assumptions. And so when they're going through this situation, if they have one person in custody, they may assume, okay, is there a possibility that we have more? And so some of that SWAT activity that you've been seeing from our cameras that are stationed around Seattle Center right now, and it's significant. Let's not lose the value of that, as what we've heard from Tyler. There is a significant SWAT response that is up on the north side by the Pacific Science Center. But we also know police, they have a lot of tasks to go through after a situation like this, which is a mass shooting in a public space, and certainly in the most iconic place in Seattle, with a lot of dynamic elements here in Seattle Center. So they're going to have a lot of work that they have got to do, including, as we would assume, people who ran from that scene may have gone into those buildings, may have been hiding in those buildings. There's a lot of places to go, so police are going to have to go through and methodically, piece by piece, go through and make sure each of those buildings is unoccupied, that nobody's in there hiding, that nobody may still be in there from the initial response. So that's not necessarily surprising that we would see a surge of SWAT resources, but again, they don't want to rule out whether they have everybody or not, or whether there were more people involved. At this point, that's why I would assume Seattle Police has called in those additional resources, because they're going to want to go through this very methodically, and they have a lot of territory to cover here at Seattle Center, both in the grounds. But then there's also several buildings. We know those buildings would have been open, and people would have run into them just trying to get away from that initial crush of getting away from the gunshots that rang out there by the fountain. So again, not necessarily ruling anything in, ruling anything out, but not surprising to see a significant response here even hours later.
Yeah, good call there on that. I appreciate your insight. I do want to just ask you, because some people may have been joining us in the middle of the broadcast, and I just want to remind people that we have been asking witnesses what they saw, and a lot of them talked about the victims, but I have not heard much about the potential suspect or suspects. So just remind people, if you will, what you've heard from the witnesses you've talked to, what they know about, one, the potential suspect or suspects, and two, what they know about what led up to the shooting, if anything.
Well, so the picture that was painted for us by the witnesses, and you've been hearing from them through our coverage this afternoon and into the evening. The witnesses describe what you would expect at Bite of Seattle. Very large crowd, and so unless you were right next to, if this was like close range gunfire, you would have had to been right on it to really see those shooters. What we heard a lot of from those other witnesses was that chaos. We heard from people who
Jeremy, I've got to interrupt you.
Immediately recognized it.
Jeremy, let me interrupt you. I want to get to Tyler. I understand there's something happening there on the other part of the campus, not far from where Jeremy is. Tyler, what can you tell us? What's happening?
Yeah, that's right, Michelle. Well, we're still kind of here with this situation of those State Patrol armored trucks that rolled up here. But, I mean, just as we got off of the air with you, we obviously just learned that update that the two suspects are in Seattle Police custody per Mayor Katie Wilson's office. And so, as Jeremy was alluding to, it's not unnatural to have, a very strong response to the area just to secure everything. Again, we are not sure if those suspects were taken into custody a few hours ago, if it was 30 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, or if it was even here. But as we were saying, there is a ton of attention that is being paid to here. So it certainly makes sense if there were suspects taken into custody near this area, and that they are just doing their due diligence to really secure the area, make sure that they have all their, all the grounds covered, all of their boxes checked. Again, this is a very vast, campus for Seattle Center, and it has been closed down for some time. And so right now, those armored vehicles that had pulled up right as we were talking to you earlier, they haven't moved, but they are here, kind of effectively blocking the road. But a lot of attention and activity is still up there in this intersection. We can see, actually, one of them is going to be pulling around here. We're going to have to move out of the way quickly, but it is going to pull up and enter the scene here. But again, those two suspects are reportedly in custody. Again, definitely questions that still spawn from that. We're going to let these guys pass here. This is State Patrol. Again, they've got the back open. And those units will be, obviously, are going to be heading into this area up here that has been very busy. Certainly, again, the two suspects is a very big development in all of this. Again, as we have been struggling to get confirmed information onto the air for you and online from authorities, but certainly a big development, and we will wait to see if those, to hopefully learn where those suspects were caught, what time that was at, and if they are the two, or if they are both shooters in this situation, or if one may be an accomplice, or what their connection may be. We're still waiting to figure that out, but we just wanted to touch base here. Obviously, this scene being as serious as it is connects quite interestingly with that update that we're getting about those people in custody.
Okay, roger that. I appreciate the information there. Thanks very much. And again, we are continuing to see what is a very active investigation scene. Tyler, there on the scene of the Seattle Center campus where the SWAT team for Washington State Patrol has arrived. We understand Seattle Police asked for their assistance, and we believe they may be going through the buildings there one at a time. Again, I want to reiterate what we learned just a short time ago from Mayor Katie Wilson, that 2 people are in custody at this hour. We don't know any details about when they were taken into custody, but I can tell you that we are going to continue to follow this throughout the evening. And I'll just remind you, at about 6 o'clock tonight, there was a mass shooting at the Seattle Center right at a time that was very crowded with families, young children. There were 7 people that were shot. 2 of them were sadly killed and lost their lives tonight, and we know that 5 of them were shot. We understand that 3 women, 1 man, and a 2-year-old child were all shot, 4 of them being treated at Harborview Medical Center. We are awaiting on Seattle Police. They have been promising a press briefing for hours now, for the last 2 hours. The moment that they come to the cameras, we will come back live and bring you that information. And of course, we'll have much more coming up tonight on KOMO News at 11 o'clock. But of course, tonight, a very sad night in Seattle, the city grieving over this mass shooting at the Seattle Center. We'll now join programming already in progress, and see you tonight.